For more on this from that legal perspective, we're going to bring in attorney Kelly Hyman to the show once again. And Kelly, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Great to be with you.
So this is the second time that former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted. This is very different, though, from the first indictment. Can you share the differences in terms of the counts as well as, the evidence?
So when we look at it from a legal perspective, when we look at the first indictment, we have to remember that that happened in the Eastern District of Virginia. And those charges against him, federal charges, are that, in fact, he lied under oath and was obstructing justice. Now, it's important to remember that case was dismissed on a technicality. And what that means from legal perspective is that the judge didn't rule on the merits of the case, on the counts. The reason why the case was dismissed is because the judge determined that the interim U.S. attorney, Lindsay, did not have the authority to bring the case. It was unlawful. So based on that, that case was dismissed. Now, it's important to remember that that case is being appealed, so we'll have to see what happens with that case. Now, this indictment is in the Eastern District of North Carolina, and it's for a social media post that was posted on social media, on Instagram, by Comey that said 8647, and the reference is to 86 something, whether it's to get rid of something, to potentially kill something, and 47 is the reference to the current president of the United States. So Comey has been charged in this case for 2 counts. One is disseminating this information and also a threat to the sitting president of the United States of America.
So, Kelly, I put that post there on the screen just to share with our viewers what exactly this looks like. As we take a look at this, and, Comey is saying that he didn't realize specifically what the significance of, 86 was. In terms of the line of arguments from a legal perspective, how difficult will it be for the DOJ to successfully argue to secure a conviction of threatening a president?
So from a legal perspective, we have to remember that the Department of Justice that brought this case has the burden. And what that means is they need to prove every single element of the causes of action of this case. And so when we're looking at the causes of action, when we look at the elements of what they need to prove, they need to show that there was a communication of a threat. So they would argue that by the posting of the social media, that in fact is a communication. 86, right, to get rid of, to kill. 47, the president of the United States. Secondly, they need to show that Comey did this willfully and intentionally, as that he intended to send that message. That was his specific intent. And that is a very high burden to show what exactly at that moment, his state of mind, what his intent was in this case.
You also mentioned previously the first indictment was filed in Virginia, this one in North Carolina. In terms of why a prosecutor might choose a specific district, how might that influence this particular indictment?
So a Department of Justice will bring a case where the court has jurisdiction. And so what that means is in the North Carolina case, it was brought, the Shell case, the 8647, is because the posting allegedly happened on a beach in North Carolina. So that's where the alleged crime took place. So that would mean that the court has jurisdiction. They have the power. And so that's why the case was brought in North Carolina, because the court had jurisdiction over the case.
And Kelly, there might be, a lot of discussion in terms of what is protected free speech, and then also what crosses the line into threats, particularly in this case against the President of the United States. As we take a look at that line of argument, in terms of where the court stands on that, how would they view this?
So in the First Amendment, in our Constitution, First Amendment right of free speech, that you can say something, but there are certain limitations, there are certain restrictions. In law school, they had a case where, yes, you have free speech, but walking into a movie theater and screaming there's a fire when there's no fire potentially could not be protected. So the idea is, yes, people have free speech. They can say what they mean, but an actual threat to President of the United States crosses that line that is not protected. So that's really going to be key for this case. Was in fact this an actual threat? Did Comey have that intent? Was in fact his actions willful, or was it in fact more of a political statement? Right? Was it more of the idea of 86 means to vote out, to get out, to have a change, rather than actually meaning that the president should in fact be harmed?
And Kelly, Comey deleted that social media post. He took it down when he says that he heard a lot of this backlash. Does that play any role into a line of argument one way or the other, the fact that he removed it?
For the defense standpoint, they would argue, or most likely going to argue, look, he didn't have the intent. His idea, he saw this on the beach. He didn't create the shells. He saw it, thought it was a political message, took a photo of it, and posted it on social media. When people started commenting of what they thought that it meant to 86 to get rid of, to kill the president, he immediately took it down. So that argument can be made that he didn't have the intent. Now, Department of Justice could potentially argue that no, by taking it down shows in fact that he was guilty of it, that he knew all along that something was wrong, and then people were calling him out on it, and he had the guilt, and so he took it down. Ultimately, it'll be something that the court will determine.
And in terms of the court, what are the next steps in the legal process?
So Comey will appear before the judge and enter a plea, most likely not guilty. His attorneys have stated that they plan to file motions, similar motions that they filed in the first indictment, a motion based on the fact that they believe that this prosecution is vindictive prosecution, and then also the fact that this prosecution is selective prosecution. And so what that means from a legal perspective, from the selective prosecution, is you're selecting someone and choosing them and prosecuting them even though other people have done something similar. And they will point to other messages that have been on social media. There was a right-wing person who posted when Joe Biden was posted on social media, 86-46, referring to Biden. There's also the governor of Michigan, who also wore a pin at the time that said 86-45. And according to what has been reported, that both those people have not been indicted. So the fact that the government now is selecting him solely because of who he is. Now, from the vindictive prosecution, the defendant will most likely cite to the first indictment to show, look, I'm being indicted not only once, but I'm being indicted twice, and then also use Trump's social media posts to help establish the fact that, in fact, they're just going after Comey because of Comey.
All right. A lot to break down there, Kelly. As always, we appreciate you joining us to do just that.
Great to be with you.
And of course, any new developments, we will bring them to you right here on Live Now from Fox. For the moment, though, we're going to step away for a break. We'll be right back.